Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. Before I get started, I wanted to remind everybody to check out the show notes to this podcast, whether you're listening to it on your podcast app or YouTube. Just check out the show notes and see all the things that we have available to help you out and the ways that you can help us out. Today's podcast, I wanted to talk about how to future-proof or recession-proof your career, or at least plan for a downturn, because we saw this last couple of years are pretty crazy. We saw 2020 as the COVID year, and there's a downturn in the economy, and everybody planned, or they're planning for a huge downturn at the Big Four accounting firms, and they let a lot of people go around the world. And the various Big Four accounting firms, Deloitte, KPMG, let a lot of people go. If firms did not let people go, then they cut their salaries, they cut their bonuses, they cut their pay, and then they ended up having to pay it back. And some people might have paid attention to that, some people might not, but a lot of it didn't make any sense. And I think on the flip side of the whipsaw back, where the Big Four accounting firms had to end up repaying salaries that they cut, and the bonuses were insane this year. Some people say they didn't get bonuses, or didn't get good salary increases. And if you didn't, then I'm sorry, because this was the year to do it. But this year was a crazy year, and you can see it by the partner numbers. And there's journalists out there that write articles about how dare the Big Four accounting firms pay their bonuses out so well when they have all these issues. So the pay was good this year. The flip side of that is the crazy volatility that might happen, and we might have another downturn because of various things, right? Like the market in general globally is heated up pretty good, and then for that to, let's say there's a little bit of a correction in that, and then companies cut back, or we have a recession, or whether government spending comes down, whether central banks spend less money, and we have a downturn. And there's even news about various investment firms like Goldman Sachs cutting their forecasts for GDP growth around the world. So there's just potential out there. I'm not saying it's going to happen, because nobody can really predict whether it's going to happen, but that there might be a downturn in the economy. And what does this mean for the Big Four accounting firms? Well, we saw in 2020 what it could mean. It could mean that people get laid off, they get put on performance plans, or they have their pay cut, their bonuses cut. You could have promotions stalled out for a year or so. There's a lot of different things that could happen. And I just wanted to help people plan for that. I mean, the things that aren't going to change, tax and audit are always pretty stable, or more stable than consulting in those times. So that's something to consider, because large companies are going to cut back on their consulting services first when a downturn comes. And some areas of consulting are more stable than the others, just like some areas of audit are more stable than others. You just have to plan accordingly. But then on the flip side, when things are going really well, consulting and M&A and all those types of things are going to do very well. But when the economy turns downward, M&A and consulting aren't going to do that well. So you just need to plan for these type of things. And also you need to plan on your performance, as I've said before, and your salary. You need to save money in years where it's really good and you get that humongous bonus. And also you need to plan your performance in years where the economy is really good. If the economy is turning downwards, it's not doing so well, it's cooling off, then you shouldn't, it's my personal view, that shouldn't be your home run year. You shouldn't go way above and beyond, because the Big Four accounting firms is really a marathon. I know some people approach it as if it's a sprint, and they try and work 24/7, and that might seem like the right thing to do, but it's not, because you can burn yourself out, and a lot of people get really burnt out, and it's because you're doing that the whole way around. But I think when the economy doesn't do so well, that's where you can really work on other soft skills like politics. Like, you could do less work and then work on politics more, and most likely your the firm will have less work if the economy's not doing so well, because even in tax and audit, there's other services that the big four accounting firms provide other than just those core services. There's some side consulting stuff, and there's more of that work to do when the economy's doing well. But when it's not, companies cut back. They cut back on audit fees. They cut back on tax fees, even after they cut on consulting. And so there's more time to spend working on your political game, doing less work, focusing on getting closer to partners. But also in those times where there's not so much work, then a lot of times the big four accounting firms give you more admin. You have to look closer at your budget, look closer at your margins, cut down on hours, and that raises a lot of people's stress. And I'm not telling you to get better at analyzing the little administrative things, but I'm telling you to get better at playing politics around it, at looking through those numbers and figuring out how you're going to make them look better to the partner, because that's really what the partners and your higher level folks are looking for. And so you need to plan for a recession, because we know the big four accounting firms don't do a good plan of that. If it's a good year, they pay all kinds of stuff, and mainly to themselves, to the partners, they pay all kinds of fancy bonuses and stuff. But in the downturn, they focus on the staff people, and they might reduce their own pay, but they make it seem like a big deal. And meanwhile, they're still making tons of money. So it's just in case the economy doesn't do so well going forward, people need to make sure that they plan for that. Plan accordingly, plan your line of service that you're going to stay in, and maybe you want to shift to another area that's growing. And I think that's another piece of planning that you can do ahead of time, is focus on a growing area. Like right now, we know that the big four accounting firms are focused on ESG, diversity. Crypto is growing, maybe not within the big four firms as much, but just in the whole financial services sector, it's growing. So it's somewhere you can look into. And there's even more news about ESG, about further government regulation, because there's tons of investments growing in this area, but there's not a lot of guidance. And the governments will be the first ones. They're going to have to figure out what kind of guidance they're going to implement, but the big four accounting firms are going to be the ones that help their clients figure out those regulations and adapt to those regulations. So it's also a good time to see where your career is going to shift. That's a podcast for today, though. I wanted to just get everybody ready in case there is another downturn, because the big four accounting firms most likely aren't ready for an immediate downturn right here. They might have their own studies and forecasts that say that, but just on the way that they paid people out this year, they're not ready for another one right away. So people just need to get themselves ready. Maybe not this year, maybe in a future year, but people just need to get ready. That's the podcast for today. Make sure to subscribe to get future updates, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Big Four Accounting Firms. Thanks for listening.